Imagine trying to hear someone whisper to you while you're in the middle of a crowded stadium. Well, that's often how life feels. Notifications constantly buzzing, deadlines piling up, family, friends, and worries all shouting for your attention. And in the middle of that storm, you wonder, how could I possibly hear God's voice in all this chaos? But here's the good news. Chaos never has the last word. God does. Welcome to the Ben Men Popscast. I'm Dr. Bob Martin, or Pops. Today we'll answer the question, how do I hear God's voice when life is so noisy and chaotic? Now let's face it, life rarely slows down, does it? Work, emails, bills, text messages, the endless scroll of social media. It reminds me of Martha in Luke 10:41, worried and upset about many things. We live in that same tension, and in the crush of it all, we ask, is God even here? Is He speaking? Well, that's when I think of Elijah. In 1 Kings 19, fleeing for his life and hiding in a cave, God sent wind, an earthquake, and fire, but the Lord wasn't in any of those. Instead, He spoke to Elijah in a gentle whisper. That same God still whispers today, even in your chaos. Now, perhaps you're wondering, why does God's voice seem so distant? Well, if our lives are restless, it may be because we have let the culture, our sinful nature, or even the enemy, Satan, direct our minds. And a restless mind will always struggle to hear a peaceful God. But Paul reminds us in Colossians 3:2 to set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. So maybe you're thinking, well, Pops, that's great advice, but I can't escape my responsibilities and move into a monastery. Well, frankly, neither could I. For years, I struggled to hear God in the midst of my life's noise and chaos until I found the secret: stillness. Psalm 46:10 doesn't say, find a noise-free world. It says, be still and know that I am God. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It's the posture of your heart and mind. Romans 12:2 calls us to renew our minds, and one of the best ways to do that is by reading and meditating on Scripture until the noise starts to fade. Now, that may sound like a simple solution, but when I first started, it was hard. My mind was so easily distracted, but staying with it slowly quieted the noise and chaos until it was just Jesus and me meeting in His Word. So if you're just starting out, I'd encourage you to start with a psalm. For instance, Psalm 23 reminds you that the Lord is your shepherd. Psalm 27 proclaims He is your light and salvation. Or Psalm 46 shows He is your refuge, even when the earth shakes. And Psalm 103 lifts your eyes to His endless mercy and love. Well, just choose one of those four psalms and let a single verse linger and simply ask, Lord, what are you saying to me here? Well, after Scripture reading and meditation comes prayer and solitude. Mark 1:35 says Jesus arose early when it was still dark and went to a solitary place to pray. Now, if the Son of God needed silence with the Father, how much more do we? Prayer isn't just talking, it's also listening. Remember, Jesus said in John 10:27, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. Even a few minutes of stillness can open space for the peace that Jesus promises in John 14:27. Dallas Willard once wrote, hearing God's voice is not about hearing the audible voice, but being attuned to the divine presence guiding us amidst the noise of life. But prayer also requires persistence and patience. And if we remain faithful in prayer, Isaiah 40:31 promises renewed strength for those who wait on the Lord. So don't rush the process. Things proceed in God's time, not ours, as long as we persist. But here's another key piece: discernment. Now, if you sense something is from God, test it. Does it line up with Scripture? Does it bring peace? God's voice corrects with love, never with crushing shame. The enemy heaps on guilt. The Spirit brings conviction that leads to freedom. Finally, James 1:5 promises wisdom to any believer who asks. So remember, Jesus is not distant or silent in your chaos. And through the practices of scripture reading, meditation, prayer, and solitude, the Lord's voice becomes clearer. A perspective that I learned is that noise and chaos didn't silence God, but it silenced me long enough to realize how much I needed Him. So here's my challenge to you for this week. Find just 5 quiet minutes every day and read Psalm 23 slowly. Ask the Lord, what are you saying to me? Then sit in silence for another 3 to 5 minutes, praying back to God the words you just read. Now, let me caution you, when you're starting this process, that 8 to 10 minutes can feel like a really long time, but stick with it, because your faithfulness will eventually be rewarded with the shepherd piercing the chaos you are experiencing to bring you peace. I just want to thank you for joining me for this episode of the Binmin Popscast. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. For more resources and to sign up for our newsletter, visit binmin.org and be sure to follow us on social media. Until next time, God bless you.